When Barron Trump became the subject of a joke, Melania's bold actions ignited a cultural reckoning. The KN episode started like any other in the realm of late-night television. The studio audience in Burbank, California, laughed along as the host, famous for his sharp wit and politically charged humor, delivered punchlines at the expense of public figures. But then, in an unexpected twist, his focus shifted to Barron Trump, the youngest child of the former First Lady and President. The joke was quick, cutting, and clearly directed at the teenager. The audience's reaction was mixed. Some laughed awkwardly, while others shifted uneasily in their seats. This wasn't just a harmless quip. It was a jab that struck deeper, targeting a young boy who had largely remained out of the public eye. Within hours, the clip went viral. Social media erupted, with hashtags like #BarronTrump trending on platforms like Twitter and Instagram. Timelines were flooded with memes and reactions as supporters of the Trump family clashed with defenders of the comedian. While some condemned the joke as tasteless and unnecessary, others brushed it off as mere comedy. News outlets quickly jumped on the story, analyzing every aspect and reigniting discussions about the limits of humor. At her home in Palm Beach, Melania Trump watched the clip with disbelief. Barron had always been her top priority, and she had worked relentlessly to shield him from the chaos of public life. To her, the insult wasn't just directed at Barron. It felt personal, a direct blow to her as well. As a mother, she knew this was something she couldn't ignore. Melania's instincts as a parent took over, and she immediately began drafting a statement to address the situation. But this time, words alone wouldn't suffice. As the backlash intensified, she made a decision that sent shockwaves through the media. She would file a lawsuit. What she didn't anticipate, however, was how this choice would spark a far larger battle than she had imagined. The following morning, Melania Trump's team released a statement to the press. It was carefully worded yet firm, condemning the TV host's comments as both inappropriate and harmful. While her statement resonated with her supporters, it didn't quell the growing controversy. Melania wasn't just upset. She was determined. For years, she had faced criticism and ridicule as a public figure, but this attack on her son was deeply personal. She was ready to fight back. Turning to one of the country's top defamation attorneys, renowned for her no-nonsense approach and high-profile wins, Melania took decisive action. Together, they filed a lawsuit against the host and the network, alleging defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The legal filing made a bold claim. The joke, although framed as humor, had crossed a boundary. This wasn't merely about free speech. It was about safeguarding a child's right to privacy and dignity. The lawsuit itself became a media sensation. News anchors debated its validity, questioning whether Melania's case held merit or was just a strategic move to regain the spotlight. Supporters praised her courage, calling her a fierce mother standing up for her son, while critics accused her of using the lawsuit as a publicity stunt. Barron, meanwhile, stayed out of the public eye. Friends close to the family described him as a reserved teenager who avoided the media frenzy surrounding his family. Yet, Melania's actions spoke volumes. It wasn't about her reputation. It was about his well-being. The lawsuit's impact was immediate. Sponsors began distancing themselves from the late-night show, wary of the negative attention. The host, known for his confidence, appeared more subdued in his subsequent broadcasts. However, he refused to apologize, doubling down on his right to free speech and framing the lawsuit as an attack on comedy itself. As days passed, the story continued to grow, drawing opinions from every corner of the nation, and the battle was far from over. The lawsuit ignited a media firestorm. Cable news channels dedicated hours to panel discussions, online forums buzzed with debates, and podcasts analyzed the situation from every angle. The country seemed divided. On one side, Many applauded Melania for taking a stand against what they saw as bullying disguised as comedy. Parents, in particular, resonated with her decision, flooding social media with messages of support. "Protecting our children should never be a debate," one viral post read, accompanied by a photo of Barron during his father's presidency. On the other hand, the backlash was fierce. Comedians and talk show hosts rallied around their embattled peer, arguing that the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent for creative freedom. Public figures, including their families, are fair game for satire. "Age doesn't matter," one prominent host declared during a heated debate on his program. The controversy spilled out of the media and into everyday conversations. From college campuses in Los Angeles to diners in Topeka, Kansas, people debated whether the host had gone too far or if society was becoming overly sensitive. The story was no longer just about Melania and Barron. It had evolved into a national discussion about the boundaries of entertainment and what behavior society should tolerate under the guise of humor. Amid the chaos, the late-night host remained defiant. His monologues became more pointed, framing himself as a victim of censorship. While his supporters rallied behind him, critics noted that his tone had turned bitter, a stark contrast to his usual charm. The network felt the pressure too. Ratings for the host's show started to decline, and rumors swirled that executives were reconsidering their support. Meanwhile, Melania's legal team moved swiftly, submitting more evidence to strengthen their case. What began as a personal fight was now shaping up to be a cultural reckoning. And then came a bombshell that no one could have anticipated, one that threatened to change the course of the lawsuit entirely. When the trial began in Los Angeles Superior Court, it became a media spectacle. Paparazzi crowded the courthouse steps, capturing images of Melania arriving in poised elegance, flanked by her legal team. On the other side, the late-night host entered with his attorneys, his expression set with determination. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was a referendum on modern entertainment. The prosecution opened with a striking argument, highlighting the thin line between comedy and cruelty. They played the clip of the offensive joke, its audio reverberating through the silent courtroom. Melania's lawyer described the emotional toll on Barron, painting a picture of a teenager caught in the crosshairs of media sensationalism. "This is not about free speech," the lawyer declared firmly. "This is about protecting a child's right to grow up without being targeted for sport." The defense, on the other hand, leaned heavily on the First Amendment. They argued that even offensive humor deserved protection, citing decades of legal precedent. For them, this was about safeguarding the creative freedoms that define satire. The defense continued to support their case, portraying the host as a misunderstood artist pushing the boundaries of comedy. At one point, the host himself took the stand, delivering an emotional testimony about his career and expressing fears that the lawsuit could suppress creative freedom. The courtroom became a battleground of opposing ideologies, with both sides presenting witnesses to strengthen their arguments. Barron's former teachers testified, describing him as a quiet and reserved teenager whose education had been disrupted by the media's relentless attention. Meanwhile, the defense called on comedians who fervently argued that satire was an essential tool for societal critique. Public interest in the case hit its peak, with every detail, from Melania's composed reactions to the host's fiery statements, scrutinized and debated across all major media platforms. Late-night shows nationwide avoided mentioning the trial, worried about becoming the next target of public backlash. But just when the proceedings seemed to be settling into a predictable rhythm, an unexpected witness changed everything, shifting the narrative and public perception. On what began as a seemingly ordinary day in court, tension filled the room as the prosecution announced a surprise witness. Uneasy glances passed among the defense team as William Carter, a former production assistant for the late-night show, stepped into the courtroom. Carter, who had worked on the show for over 5 years before being dismissed under contentious circumstances, approached the stand with a calm yet determined demeanor. As Carter testified, the atmosphere grew electric. He described a behind-the-scenes culture at the show where pushing boundaries often outweighed ethical considerations. However, it wasn't his general observations that shook the courtroom. It was the specific evidence he carried. Reaching into his briefcase, Carter revealed emails, scripts, and internal communications that exposed something far more damning than anyone had expected. According to Carter, the joke about Barron Trump hadn't been a spur-of-the-moment quip. Instead, it had been carefully planned, debated, and ultimately approved by senior executives at the network. Worse still, some of the correspondents suggested that the joke's primary purpose wasn't humor but to provoke controversy and drive up ratings. Gasps filled the courtroom as the documents were displayed on a screen. In one particularly incriminating email, a network executive wrote, "It'll get people talking. Controversy sells." For the first time, the trial's focus shifted away from the host to the corporate machinery that had facilitated the incident. The defense scrambled to counter the damage, arguing that the host had acted independently and that the network's decisions were irrelevant to the case. But the harm had been done. Carter's testimony cast doubt not only on the joke itself, but also on the motives behind it. Outside the courthouse, the revelations sent shockwaves through the media industry. Headlines blared accusations about the toxic culture within the network. Several executives were placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. The host, once celebrated as a bold and edgy comedian, found himself increasingly isolated as his own employers distanced themselves from him. Even as the tide turned in Melania's favor. As the trial neared its conclusion, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The courtroom was packed to capacity, with journalists in the gallery ready to document every moment. Outside, crowds gathered, split between Melania Trump supporters and those rallying for the late-night host. Public opinion had swayed dramatically after William Carter's explosive revelations, making the trial's outcome even more consequential. In her closing argument, Melania's lawyer delivered a stirring speech. She didn't just advocate for her client, but for every family unfairly thrust into the public eye. "This isn't about silencing comedy," she declared, her voice steady and resolute. "This is about accountability, understanding that our words, especially when amplified to millions, carry consequences." The defense, though weakened, made one final plea. They warned that a ruling against the host could set a dangerous precedent, chilling creative expression for comedians everywhere. "Where do we draw the line?" they asked. "At what point does protecting feelings infringe on the freedom to challenge and provoke?" After hours of intense deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict. The host was found liable for defamation, and the network was ordered to pay substantial damages for enabling a culture of sensationalism. However, the judge clarified that the ruling was not an attack on free speech, but a recognition that humor must not come at the expense of a child's dignity. The verdict sent shockwaves through the media industry. For Melania, it was a bittersweet victory. She had fought and won for her son, but the journey had been emotionally draining. In a brief statement to the press, she expressed her hope that the case would inspire a more thoughtful and respectful approach to public discourse. The fallout for the host was severe. Sponsors pulled out, his network distanced itself, and his show was placed on indefinite hiatus. Yet, the case also sparked critical conversations across the nation. People debated the limits of comedy, the responsibilities of public figures, and the ethics of media sensationalism. In the aftermath, the entertainment industry faced a reckoning. Networks began re-evaluating their approach to comedy, realizing that controversy-driven content came with a steep price. Comedians reconsidered their material, striving to challenge norms without crossing into cruelty. Audiences became more mindful of the kind of content they chose to support. As the nation reflected on the trial, deeper cultural questions emerged. Where is the line between humor and harm? How do we balance free speech with accountability? For many parents, Melania's battle was a wake-up call, reminding them of the need to protect their children in an increasingly unforgiving and digital world. One mother from Des Moines shared her thoughts in a viral video. If someone like Melania Trump, with all her resources, struggles to shield her child, what does that mean for the rest of us? This trial wasn't just about Barron. It was about all our kids. The case became a turning point for the entertainment industry and society at large. Networks prioritized oversight, and communities discussed the far-reaching impact of words and actions. The trial underscored how a simple joke could spark profound conversations about ethics, values, and respect. This story transcended Melania, Barron, and the host, becoming a cultural milestone. It reminded everyone that while free speech is a right, empathy and responsibility are obligations. Humor has the power to unite, but it can also divide, and it's up to all of us to choose our words wisely. As the dust settled, one truth remained: compassion must always come first. The trial ended, but the lessons it taught are more relevant than ever. Let's ensure our words build bridges, not walls, and challenge others with respect, not cruelty. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more stories that inspire reflection and change.